Is AI going to take your video editing job? And is there any place for AI in your video editing workflow? Those are some really big questions, and I'm not going to be able to talk about all of that and all the nuance of that and everything about it in this video. Not even gonna try. I know that there's a lot of people that have been worried about it, and maybe this is like just totally, I'm not trying to catch the trend here. I've missed the boat. Everybody's, moved on probably, and I don't really care. I've talked to my friends, and when you're kind of in this is an ongoing conversation of how do we take tools and implement them? Because if anybody says that AI is going to take your job, or that, I guess it's just that, if AI is going to take your job and completely fundamentally change everything, then they're either doing two things. They're either lying for views and clickbait and, engagement and all that stuff, or they're trying to sell you something, like a whatever it is. Those are the two options. So when we approach this stuff, we have to have a very slow, thoughtful, analytical, and methodical approach to all of this stuff, because there's no AI tool or combo of AI tools that can take what I do and just do it for me. It's not there. Or at least, you can get it to randomly select footage and put music on and do all this stuff, but it's not gonna have that human crafting behind it. And I think there's so much stuff that really matters, and people can tell inherently when they see something. And that's not going to be the case all of the time, but it also matters. It matters to you as the creative. So why put yourself through that? One of the use cases that I have found for AI is when you have multiple interviews. Let's say you've got 5 30-minute interviews. That's a lot of interviews. Premiere Pro auto-generates transcripts. You can take those transcripts, you can upload them to Claude. Claude will analyze them, and you can ask it questions. You can say, hey, I want these story points, or I want, these kinds of things. Can you give me time codes where people talked about that stuff? And it'll generate that stuff for you. You can ask it questions like, hey, where did somebody say this thing? When did somebody do this? When did this happen? And it'll give you back responses about those transcripts. That's a super powerful tool for the editing and storytelling process. And, there was one time where it was like a 45-minute keynote discussion, and we needed to make a couple 45-second little social media clips. And we had like a dozen keynotes. We can't watch through a dozen almost hour-long keynotes and make a bunch of 45-second. It's just the time versus all that stuff. It was just not reasonable to do. We were randomly picking parts, and you don't want to be doing that. And so I generated transcripts, and I was able to say, hey, I want an impactful soundbite from these things. Can you give me a few options with time codes? And it generated that stuff. And I was able to put those things together really quickly by using that. That's so powerful to be able to kind of interact with an interview that way, with a transcript. And it's helpful to watch those things through. If you're really crafting a story, you want to kind of be there in the moment, because the transcript and the AI is not going to convey the emotion of the person on camera, so that gets lost. It just has the words, right? But that's a really helpful tool to implement in that process of trying to craft the story, be able to find moments and ask it questions of, oh, when did they talk about this thing? Oh, was there a point where they mentioned something like this, as just a reference? That's so valuable and so helpful. And so it's I'm really glad that is an option that exists in this whole thing. Now, I was talking to a friend about graphics that are generated by AI. And I think the problem with video or graphics that are generated with AI is it's so difficult to go back and make revisions. There's always client revisions. And so if you're making stuff for a client and you're like, you have AI generate something for you, then the iteration of that is next to impossible. If you have layers in Photoshop or in Illustrator, you can go and you can change those things. There's none of that exists yet with all the AI stuff. And maybe we will get to a point where it builds the layers out for you. I'm sure that is a thing that's possible in the future. At the current moment, you can't really do that. And if you wanted to make revisions to video, like, you might end up with something completely different. And I'm sure that those tools will get better as time goes on. But still, that is not really feasible at this point. And I don't think that anybody wants that. I still hold true. As many people deny it and say it's whatever, I still hold true to the fact that I guess it's not a fact, it's an opinion, but I don't think that people, the general populace, wants to consume AI-generated content. People don't want to listen to AI-generated music. People don't want to listen or read AI-generated books or movies or any sort of like media like that. People want to enjoy human-crafted creative experiences and artwork and stories. I do not believe that will ever change. I think there will be a select few people who think that AI is really cool, and it is, who are going to say, wow, look at this stuff. But on a random trip to, work, I don't think that 99.99% of people are going to say, I really want to listen to this new AI album. No, you want to listen to music crafted by emotional human beings who had a story to tell and emotions to convey and evoke. That's what you want. And I think that holds true. We can't panic. We can't lose our minds, lose our just sense of all, logic with all of this stuff. And we also shouldn't say, oh, I hate AI. There's all these things that people are doing with it that I don't like. I'm going to throw it all out. Because you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Because in this case with the transcripts, it's so helpful. And having stuff auto-generate and being able to upload it and have it analyzed and being able to ask it questions about that stuff, so powerful, so time-saving. And it saves time for me to actually do creative work, which is what I want to do. I don't want to do this, this stuff. And when you're in a job where you're doing work for corporate clients, like, it's not always the most exciting. It's not always the most creative. And so if you're able to accomplish the end goal of that, but using less time, using less resources, less creative energy, you're not getting as frustrated. You're more fresh to do those creative things. I think methods, that's one example, but methods like that, I think, are extremely powerful and should be embraced entirely and fully. So that's just one kind of aspect of this. I hope that makes sense. By the way, I'd love to hear from you. You should comment below. And if you like this sort of stuff, you should subscribe. I don't think that any of it is what people make it out to be. I think there's a lot of people who want to make a lot of money and they see the opportunity in that in something novel. But I think that there's going to be some sort of like settling after all this. The dust will settle, the excitement will settle, and we'll kind of get to a new place of people being like, yeah, okay, cool, But I think we're a long way from that as well. But in the grand scheme of things, don't freak out. Don't panic. Don't whatever that stuff. And also, don't throw it all out, because I think there is something helpful to it. And I think that it'll be, something like don't throw out the movies, right? It's not just about radio. There's a place for both. And yeah. Cool. I hope that was encouraging to you. Hope that was helpful. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you later. See ya.